Let's bring in our security expert, Air Vice Marshal Sean Bell. Now, obviously, there's little in the way of fact at the moment surrounding this incident, but what we do know is that it's absolutely extraordinary that there's been this alleged attack on the Kremlin. Talk us through the footage that's swirling around social media.
Yeah, it is amazing footage. I mean, this is the head of power for Russia. If this was the House of Parliament, it would be absolutely front-page news. This is really critical. Now, Russia claims this is a Ukrainian drone strike, but also Russia claims that there were 2 drones and that their military and special forces and electronic warfare took them out. I have to say, it doesn't look like they took them out based on this footage we're seeing now. But if we take a closer look at the footage, we can analyse this in a slightly slower speed. First of all, the drone doesn't appear to be a very fast drone. Obviously, we've slowed it down here, but the initial footage is very slow. And also, we can see it's not a particularly large drone. We can see 2 people on the roof of the building there who are, for a relative size, we can now compare them with the size of the drone. And whilst it's very difficult to tell accurately, but it doesn't look like a big aircraft-sized drone, but it's also not a micro-drone. If we wind the footage forward a little bit further, we see that the drone doesn't actually hit its target, that actually misses the top of the building and explodes just after it goes past the top of the building. So it may have some sort of proximity charge to it, or it may have been the operator, having realised he was going to miss, actually detonates it just above. If we just wind the footage forward a few more frames just there, you can now see that part of the burning wreckage falls onto the roof, and that's important because later on there's another bit of footage that seems to imply there's been a hole into the roof, whereas in reality it hasn't, it's just burning wreckage. And finally, if we move forward just a little bit further, you can see the plume of smoke. Now, for our viewers, that's not a lot of smoke for an explosion. That's more a hand grenade-sized explosion, not a bomb-sized explosion, which gives an idea of the sort of relative charge that's been involved in this attack.
So, look, it looks like a fairly benign attack. Nevertheless, it's managed to penetrate the Kremlin's boundaries. One would think that the Kremlin would have better defences than that, Sean.
One of the things that I fail to understand at the moment is that it's going to be a fortress. The Kremlin will be a fortress with lots of layers of air defence, whether it's big missile systems to combat big threats, all the way down through automatic gunfire to electronic warfare. There will be a whole panoply of defences, and somehow at least one of these drones has got through. Now, as we said, militarily, it's not particularly significant. It hasn't done any damage, probably just needs a lick of paint and it'll be all back to normal again. But symbolically, this is absolutely huge. It's on not quite the eve, but it's the 9th of May is meant to be Victory Day, which Putin had wanted to celebrate. And actually, the rest of the Russian population, particularly in the Kremlin, in Moscow itself, will have seen this. And that brings the harsh reality of warfare actually onto their doorstep. And for Putin, who's known to be a little bit apprehensive about his own safety, it demonstrates quite clearly that Ukraine can reach out and touch him even when he's in a stronghold of the Kremlin.
Yeah, I think that's what's especially extraordinary, isn't it, is that he is known for his paranoia. And this footage certainly is dramatic and extraordinary to anyone watching, but especially to Russian civilians. Now, let's talk about who's saying what. Ukraine denies any connection to this attack. Russia is saying that this was a Ukrainian drone attack, an attempt on Vladimir Putin's life. What do we actually know?
Almost certainly, if it was trying to be an impact on his life, there'd have been a bigger charge. That wasn't the case. It looks like it's far more symbolic. It's part of, we're watching fuel sites being targeted, Sevastopol, fuel sites being targeted on the Kursk Bridge. This is all feels like the opening overtures of the spring offensive before they're actually on the attack to deceive, to distract Russian forces on the start of that campaign. But on reflection, I would just very glad I'm not head of Putin's security arrangement at the Kremlin today, because that is a grave breach of security to get through those defences.
And interestingly, we do know that Vladimir Putin actually wasn't in the Kremlin when this happened, but certainly Ukraine's concern now is that this could be used as a pretext for escalated attacks on Ukraine.